The architect's paralysis. It sounds dramatic, right? But today we're going to dig into what happens when someone who seems to have it all just gets stuck. Completely and utterly stuck. And yeah, it's about an architect, but honestly, it's really about a feeling I bet we've all felt at some point. That feeling of just being paralyzed.
So let me ask you this. Why do we do that? Why do we sometimes feel completely frozen, even when every part of us is screaming that we need to make a change? I mean, it's got to be one of the most frustrating things ever, right? You know something's got to give, but you just can't bring yourself to do anything about it. That feeling, that sense of being trapped, that's the big mystery we're diving into.
Okay, so to really get a handle on this, let's meet a guy named Philip. Now, on the surface, Philip is living the dream. He's a successful architect, he's got it all figured out. Or so it seems. Because underneath all that success, he's trapped. Big time. And he just can't find a way out.
So where does all this begin? Well, it really kicks off with this deep, deep confusion in his relationship with his partner, Nicole. Get this, she tells him, "I could never leave you." But what Philip knows, what he's actually experiencing, is the complete opposite. And that single moment, that's a huge red flag. It shows this massive disconnect, right? This huge gap between what she's saying and what his reality is. And that sets the stage for everything that follows.
And from there, this whole thing just spirals into this incredibly destructive cycle. First, there's an affair. Then Philip tries to reason his way through it, tries to accept it. Then Nicole reassures him. And then it happens all over again. And again. With each new discovery, Philip is just filled with this anger and jealousy, but every single time, Nicole manages to convince him he's the only one she loves. You see, it's not just the betrayal itself that's the problem. It's this repeating, escalating pattern. It's like a kind of emotional whiplash that is just completely grinding him down.
And this is where he gets stuck. I mean, this quote from the case study just says it all. He was paralyzed. Think about that. He was unable to change the relationship, but he was also unable to break it off. He's just suspended, stuck between two impossible options, and he absolutely cannot move.
So you have to ask, right? What is really going on here? Is this whole thing just a story about a really, really bad relationship? Or is Philip's crisis, his paralysis, pointing to something way deeper? Something more, universal about being human?
To even begin to answer that, we've got to look at this whole situation through a very specific lens, the lens of existential psychology. And look, this isn't about slapping on simple labels or diagnosing a disorder. It's something much bigger. It's really about studying that core human struggle. The struggle to work through life's biggest, messiest experiences and actually grow from them, to become more fully human. So when you look at it that way, you start to see that Philip's story isn't just about his relationship. It's about this fundamental human struggle. His paralysis wasn't really about Nicole. The relationship, that was just the arena, the stage where a much deeper, much more fundamental battle was being fought inside of him.
So how in the world did he get to that point? Well, you can kind of break it down into a 4-step spiral downward. Step 1, he's filled with anger and jealousy. Totally normal reaction, right? But step 2 is where the real trouble starts. He felt betrayed, but he also wished he could accept it. That internal conflict, that's the trap. That leads him to step 3, where he's totally unable to change the relationship. And that, of course, leads to the final step. He can't leave her either. He's completely boxed in.
But here's the thing. Even at his absolute lowest point, when he's completely paralyzed, something shifted. Philip made a choice, a single, small choice. He decided to seek therapy. And he ended up with none other than the famous existential psychologist Rollo. And that one small act, that was the first crack in the ice, the first little bit of movement.
And that one choice, man, it just blew the doors open to the real questions. Suddenly, this whole thing wasn't just about Nicole anymore. It became about his deep anxiety in the face of his own freedom. It was about his power of intentionality, his ability to actually choose a path. It was about his struggle with his own destiny. His paralysis, yeah, you could call it a form of psychopathology. But the way out, the psychotherapy, was all about confronting these massive, fundamental ideas head on. And that kind of leaves us with a big question, doesn't it? When we feel stuck in our own lives, what are the big, profound, maybe scary questions that we're trying to avoid?